So I've been working on this adventure map for the past 2 years. I started developing this little more than 2 years ago on July 16th, 2019. Since then, I've made the terrain for the map, I've built all of Singwoods, which is currently the only settlement, I've built the entire Singwoods Dungeon, I've made a wide variety of mobs that aren't limited to the first dungeon like the Bewitching Witch, or the Ghoul, or the Cave Leech, or the Runic Wizard, or this. I've also made a fully custom boss named Globulus. Some of his attacks include Slam, where he literally slams on top of the player, Slime Shot, where he shoots out. Wait, what? That wasn't supposed to. Hold on. Let me fix that real quick. Okay, there we go. Slime Shot, where he shoots out explosive slime balls, and just basic summons. There's also a custom damage system in place for both mobs and players. There are also custom items like gear, weapons, and potions that each have their own potentially unique abilities. For example, with the Night set bonus, you gain a 10% increase to max HP with a slight reduction of speed, and with the Sugar Rush set bonus, you get a slight increase to speed as well as jump height. There are also some technical aspects that have been added, like location-based music, chances for wind to occur, longer day-night cycles, custom boss bar designs, custom NPC AI, custom interfaces, custom mini-maps, and much, much more. Alright, so now that you're somewhat caught up with what's been added, I'm going to show you the process that I use to develop certain parts of the map. Starting with the dungeon, which I didn't think to record the first 2 floors or when I was kind of outlining the dungeon, but that's kind of besides the point. On the 3rd floor, the first few things that I did was texture everything with a mix of stone, andesite, cobble, and mossy cobble, just so it's not so bland. And then I added these things in the corners to sort of break up the square look and add some height variation using just normal blocks, stairs, and slabs, which I think makes it seem a little more natural. After doing this for all the hallways and rooms, I started adding these little holes on the ground using slabs and stairs just to add some unique shapes and sizes to the ground that I would later fill with water. I also went back and added even smaller holes using stairs just to add a little bit more texture to the floor. After the boring task of making holes and flooding the place, I began placing leaves in a well thought out, meticulous manner all along the ceiling. I'm sure you've already guessed it, but it was literally just me spamming leaves all over the place, but it got the job done. The gold blocks you see me use is just so I can have dangling vines without the need of solid blocks behind them. And yeah, I could have used a different block, but I feel that gold is underappreciated. After yet again doing this everywhere, I went and started adding the sources of light that the dungeon used. These were just cave roots placed on the ceiling with a light block set to a light level of 8. Here, you can see what it would actually look like inside the map. That was basically the whole process that I used for the entire dungeon. Though the first 2 floors weren't as big, they each had their own interesting, unique details. Throughout the whole building process, I made sure to add a few hidden secrets around the place and just little interesting things just to help build the ambiance. With plenty of rooms and small secluded areas, this dungeon will not only test the player, but it will also give them something interesting to look at as they level up their equipment. Alright, so that was kinda the idea behind the dungeon, which took me about 8 hours or so just to decorate the 3rd floor. There was a lot of information that I left out, just for the purpose of not spoiling any of the dungeon's secrets, or my personal favorite, Guardian. Next, moving on to the custom NPC AI. This was part of the technical bits and bobs that I mentioned earlier, so I'll try and keep it simple. So before we move on, I just want to say there is going to be a change in the quality of the microphone and my own voice. That's just because I got a new microphone. First, the villagers that I want to be in Singwoods are the blacksmith, librarian, farmer, pastor, and 2 tavern keeps. With this in mind, I went to my testing world and began trying to figure out ways to get the custom AI to walk through a door. And no, I can't really just have the villager walk through the door because it doesn't have normal villager AI. So the solution I went with was just opening the door when the villager got near and then closing it again when it walked away. I did a little more testing to make sure that the pathfinding worked right and that the door responded properly to when the villager was in close proximity. With this knowledge, I went back into the map and began working more on the simpler NPCs, those being the blacksmith and farmer. Starting with the blacksmith, I wanted him to wander between two locations throughout the day. During the day, he is outside working, and during the night, he's inside kicking his feet up and relaxing. Actually implementing this wasn't all that hard. All I did was I grabbed the location of where I wanted the NPC to pathfind to, and then I loaded them into the pathfinding AI so that it would be able to take location. The farmer was relatively easy since I wanted him to wander between 3 locations as opposed to the 2 the blacksmith had. This was the same concept as a blacksmith, so it was relatively easy. Alright, so before we go on to the harder NPCs, let's go ahead and cover the librarian real quick. So he literally just sits in that spot all day and all night. He does not move from that spot whatsoever. Now we get on to the pastor. Up until now, this was the hardest and most frustrating NPC to work with. Like the farmer, the pastor wanders between 3 locations based on the time of day. But the issue that came up was when the pastor was going to their place of work. The pathfinding was really not wanting to work with me, so I just had them teleport inside when they got close. Having them leave took a little bit of tinkering, but I found a reliable solution that doesn't require any teleportation and still looked good. Getting the pastor to head home was thankfully the easiest part. Now we're on to the 2 tavern keeps. Setting these 2 up was like fighting tooth and nail. This was by far the hardest to set up because I needed to switch the location of the first and second tavern keep. I ran into issue after issue after issue, and at one point it seemed hopeless. But through hours of hard work and constant trial and error, I got it to a state where I was happy with the outcome. With where it was, I don't think I cut many corners, if any, so I'm incredibly proud of the work that was done. So just to recap a little bit, I finished the entire Singwoods Dungeon, and I've gotten the NPCs in Singwoods to act autonomously. Oh, and I made a few sprites for some potions, but that's just a little quick side project. I also haven't come up with a name for the map, so if you have any suggestions down below, that would be wonderful. I usually have a poor choice in names as the dungeon's mini-boss is named Guardian, but I'll show him off sometime in the future. With that said, I would like to thank you for watching, and I hope you have enjoyed this video.